Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LeanTossup Call of Duty League podcast. It's time. We're back. We were off last week, not of our own volition, but because there were no Call of Duty League lines, and it's difficult to talk about nothing. But we're back now, and we have something special to talk about. Minor number two, not major two. Yeah, not yet. That's a few weeks away. But we have minor two to talk about. Actually, I'm pretty excited for this. Last minor was actually pretty good. It was actually a pretty good weekend of COD. It's actually nice to break up the whole, oh, okay, here's your random matches, and it's nice to have a little bit of a break in there of just the kind of, yeah, here's 8 random teams, just go at it, right? Joined, as always, by my co-host, CDLMetrics. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, a little bummed out that last week did not work, but we still had some entertaining games to watch last weekend nonetheless. And we still posted our combined model plays and our favorite picks of the week, all that sort of stuff, which we'll go over here shortly. But yeah, we got lines this week to talk about, and that makes things a lot easier. And yeah, minor two this weekend. It'll be the last minor of the year, so soak it in while you can. But yeah, excited to talk as always.
Yeah, they really should have not. They really should have budgeted for more than just two of these. But whatever, that's a next year problem. Anyways, model versus markets weekly recap. I went 2-1 last week, and that's actually off the back of me going 3-0 the week before. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. Also, for some reason, LEG just got destroyed by Miami. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. That was like random. They just like absolutely annihilated them. You unfortunately said, "Oh, Vegas might have upside this week," and they just did not. It's sad. It's like I don't like when you think of a team like this, you think of the New York Giants, but they're like the New York Giants are trying to. It's hard, right? I don't think they're like if this was the NFL, you'd accuse them of tanking, but they're clear. There's no advantage to tanking. There's no draft. I don't know what they're doing at this point, but maybe they're just like whatever. The season's chalked. We're just gonna just run it out and I don't know, whatever. But
Yeah, it happens. I liked Vegas the prior week, and they covered the 2.5 in both of their matches the previous in that week one. So I felt that like a minus 115 and a minus 110 for two teams that are like okay in Cloud9 and Rocker. I was like, they could probably get one of those, and I think they could get two. They showed they could win a control again, and then yeah, they looked. It was maybe their worst week of the year, which is saying a lot because this Vegas team has been bad all year, and that was really pitiful last week. But it's Vegas, so you get what you pay for. And then, yeah, Toronto. I felt really good about the map 2 against Thieves. Thieves had struggled the previous week. They lost, I think, 6-1 to Vegas in Search and Destroy, and Toronto, according to my numbers, were very good at Search. And then they get absolutely rocked by Thieves. So it's a tough game to predict. Yeah, really good on your picks there. You picked Toronto in the money line versus Boston. That was money. And then, yeah, you really just picking on Boston. That's where it went right for you. And, yeah, Boston Breach surely struggled. We'll see if we can rebound, if I can rebound at least. But yeah, excited to talk about the games.
yeah. Moving on, the combined model plays did not have a particularly great week. Again, but a lot of that is just liking Vegas and then just horribly disappointing us, like a child that goes off and smashes the family car. LAG, yeah, they didn't have a great week either. But Vancouver, man, like this is here's the thing, right? It's like I picked Vancouver, and I was, oh, okay, in the weekly contest, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a few weeks. But if Vancouver is actually able to do some stuff, like it means I have 1, 2, and 4 or 5. That's a really strong position in the contest, I think. And then me and my shadow, we will win the contest. But yeah, no, also Toronto pretty good there as well. Except when they played on Sunday. Did they play on Sunday?
That was Thieves, yeah.
Thieves, that's right. Yeah, Thieves and FaZe are just in a league of their own at this point, right? I think it's very clearly they're 1 and 2, and in some ways that kind of rivalry is reminiscent of the FaZe Ultra rivalry of Cold War is what it feels like a little bit. League news. So here is the bracket for this week. Obviously, this is a slightly different bracket than the major that we're all used to. Every game is elimination, so there's 4 games on Friday. Then those 4 winners go on to play 4 teams that have a bye there on Saturday, and then 3 games on Sunday. I have some questions about how this seeding works because it doesn't make any sense to me at all. You have it too, because I
I
was
do
trying
as
to.
well, yeah. I was going to bring
So
this up, but you go ahead.
yeah, so I'm like, so again, I have the model for a minor tournament and the major tournament, right? I figured out how to code it all in the brackets, and we'll talk about the numbers later. That's fine, but I'm like, okay, so I'm like, what are the standings from the thing? And then it's, oh, like FaZe is like in third or something because they lost to Vancouver. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it should be like, this should be the order. And it's, no, it's a different order. And I'm like, oh, is it the season long standings order? But no, it's not that order either. It's like a different order. I'm like, what is happening? I don't understand. Like, Optic, I don't understand how Optic is playing Vegas. Any way I calculate it, Rocker should be playing Vegas. If you go the season standings, Rocker should be playing Vegas. If you go the stage standings, Rocker should be playing Vegas. But somehow Optic, I have no idea what's going on. Do you have any idea what's going on or no? I have no idea.
I do have an idea of what is going on, but think it's a good. I think the league, they treated these minors this year as testing grounds and like very bare bone, like very let's take it by the seat of their pants a thing. So what this bracket is, because I thought this was weird, and we were going to talk about this last week if we podcasted, but we didn't. Thanks, Bet365. But COD League tweeted out, I believe it was last Tuesday or Wednesday. It must have been Tuesday. And I thought it was a tweet that went out a week too early because the tweet was literally just, here is your minor 2 bracket. And I was like, that's next weekend, COD League. Like, you, whoops. And the bracket made sense because from what we saw and what it is here, these were the season-long standings going into last weekend. So that's why Optic is the 5 seed, not the 7. I think they're the 7 now because they didn't win any of their games last weekend. Why? That's why it's weird, because it's not how Minor 1 was, where that was literally just 4 matches each team had played up until that point, seeded them into a Minor 1 bracket. That I get. That is, and I didn't love that either, because it's like, we're really going to seed teams based off of 4 matches. And because of that, FaZe was the 10 seed because they started slow, and we had a bunch of weirdness going on with that. And this is really weird because it's like, why not wait to release the bracket until this week? Like, why? Because if we did that, Optic wouldn't get to play Falcons, and there's a much greater chance that they would lose in round 1. The whole thing is messy. I really hope they keep this sort of a thing going. And these things are probably like, we're only noticing them because we are avid fans of the COD League. We are watching pretty much every week. We're watching most matches. We're tracking the matches in spreadsheets and data models and all of this stuff. To the average fan, they're going to log on Friday and be like, oh, yay, Minor 2, let's go, who's playing? And probably not dig into it that much. But the CDL needs to, like, figure this out. Just pick a lane and stick to it. And yeah, that's all I got to say, because it's so weird how they treated them so differently from Minor 1 to Minor 2. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes out next season. I'm sure it'll be cleaned up a little bit at least.
It's funny because one of the complaints about college football is that, like, oh, people are like, oh, the games don't matter anymore. But these games last week literally did not matter for this. It literally didn't matter. That's funny. But anyways, whatever. I think they need to do these, and if there's a way they could do it for the back half of the season, they should emergency implement this for the back half of the season. But they're not going to, because I don't know. We don't have bounty matches at least this year, so it's not an excuse. But we'll see. I don't know. This is good, but whatever this bracket was, I don't know. This was just a bad idea. So fix this. But anyways, moving on to the matches. Finally, we've got some games here. LAG versus Miami. LAG plus 137 on the money line. Miami minus 188. Miami minus 1.5 plus 120. LAG plus 1.5 minus 163. No spreads this week, which is really sad because I always love throwing in hardpoint spreads for my bets of the week, but that's okay. Minus 163 for map 1, minus 150 map 2, and minus 138 map 3. So just looking at this, you're seeing I've got LAG I actually like LAG in this. I've got LAG, I think, roughly a 57-58% favorite. I like the LAG plus 1.5. I don't like Miami here. You're a little higher on LAG than the market, but definitely not as high as me. Do you see LAG as a play here or no?
I don't. And I'm actually surprised that your model likes LAG more than mine. But I think we're baking in the same data into both of our models. And LAG have been that team all year where it's like they have a lot of close losses when you talk about individual maps. And a lot of those close losses have led to series losses. A lot of them in Game 5 and so on. So, like, they've only won 2 matches on the year, according to my numbers, unless I'm forgetting. Maybe they won their opening round match at Minor 1 but that wouldn't have been worth any CDL points. Regardless, like, LAG are underperforming expectations, I would say. Now there's rumors that Skies is going to get benched and Priest is going to come back into the lineup. That was something we haven't talked about yet just because we didn't record last week, but LAG has tinkered a little with their lineup. They brought in a Challengers player. I'm forgetting his name, but it still hasn't really worked out for them. According to my numbers, LAG are the 11th best team. Miami's not that much better, but if you really just narrow the scope to since Major 1, and we know Miami was great at Major 1, and that was on land, and there's all of that stuff. But this shouldn't really be a competitive match. So in some ways, I'm like, I get where the prices are, because you have to make Miami a favorite because LAG just haven't won enough this year, and there's still question marks about their team. But I don't love Miami at the prices that are listed right now. They're just too up and down. I don't know. It's a total stay away for me. If I had to pick a side I'd prefer, I'll go with you and go with LAG here, but I really don't like it. It just, with how much fluctuation is going on within the team itself, and they just haven't shown anything really for quite a while. Maybe that changes this week. Maybe they can get a nice win over Miami here. I believe if they win this, they'll play Carolina in round 2, which is a winnable game. Maybe one of these teams can surprise us and make a semifinal, or maybe even make the final of this thing. Yeah, an interesting game to kick things off on Friday. I'll keep a close eye on it, but as far as predictions go, it's really hard to make just because these teams just very inconsistent throughout the year.
Yeah, LAG, actually, these teams just played each other this
Yeah.
week. I gotta take LAG here. I think that was a really weird 3-0. I think LAG is the better team, so I'm gonna take them, and we'll see if I'm right. We'll see. Next up, Optic versus Vegas. Optic minus 1,600 on the money line. Vegas plus 700. Optic minus 2.5 plus 110. Vegas plus 2.5 minus 150. Minus 1,000 in the hard point. Minus 163 in the search. And minus 900 in the control. I kind of like Vegas here, but I feel like... See, this is the problem. And this is why, again, the combined model plays took a bit of a hit last week in terms of the Vegas plays. The problem is that the model doesn't really, there is a little bit of crunching in the outliers, right? It doesn't affect, when two average teams play each other, right? Because obviously FaZe is better than, say, Boston or Toronto or what. There's teams, but they're in terms of strength, they're in a band. But Vegas is so far below that band that my model, at least, I'm not sure if your model does, but at least to some extent it compresses it, especially because if you play a hard point and literally it's, the model thinks they should lose by 150 points, but they only lost by, they should have lost by 130, but they only lost by 100. The model's like, they're improving. It's no, the other team got bored and just didn't care. They just didn't care to break that hill. They were like, we need 30 seconds left. We'll just get on the next hill. The problem is the model can't differentiate that because one team just is breaking the model. They are so bad that they're breaking the model. And I think that's the issue here. I've just personally stopped betting on Vegas Falcons. Not against them. I bet against them in hardpoint. There's a distinction. There's a difference there. But I've stopped betting against them at the global level. You could bet against them in hardpoint, and you should every time you can. But betting against them in terms of spreads, in terms of search and destroy and control, I think that's the play here. That being said, though, I will come back around to Optic here for a second because Optic has looked horrible, and this was before they got rid of Pred, before they got rid of Hook to replace him with Pred as well. Here's the thing. It would be really funny if Vegas took this to a game 5. Taking it to a game 5 would be a win for them. It'd be really funny if they won. And the thing is, it's just looking here at the odds, minus 1,600. We've seen bigger odds against this Vegas team. This is not even the biggest number we've seen. This is among one of the lower numbers we've seen for the money line. Some of these games haven't even had. I think one of them didn't even have a money line against Vegas. There wasn't even a money line. The fact that Vegas plus 2.5 is actually minus 150, that means there's actually a decent chance of that happening. That's how far down the looking glass we are at this point, is the fact that, hey, the books are actually thinking, hey, Vegas maybe can do it here, right? I don't know. If I was to play the hard point, I'd probably actually play the Vegas spread because it's probably some obscene number, 80 or something. It's can they get to 160 points? Great, you won. You won. Congrats. But something's weird with Optic. They're either going to figure it out and destroy Vegas, or this is going to go to 5 games. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I want to spend a lot of time on this game. It's fascinating, and I listened to Tactical Rab earlier this week, and he was breaking down the bracket, and he actually made the argument of he is the most excited for this specific match. And he caveated it with, we know what we get from Vegas, like, they're really bad. They're not even getting scrims against these other 11 CDL teams because the CDL teams don't view it as good practice. That's where we're at with this team now. They're a joke, and unless they're willing to change the structure of their team, this is just what we're going to get. And I think a lot of fans and people who watch the CDL have just come to accept that of, okay, they're going to be bad. They're going to be really bad. And not just really bad, like the worst CDL team we've ever seen. And we've seen some bad ones. And I could riff off a bunch of stats about how Vegas are the worst team in the league. Obviously, they haven't won a hard point. They haven't gone to a map 5 this year. I did some digging. They've played 13 matches this year. They've been swept in 7 of those 13. This is all to say that the only side I can feasibly take here is Optic. -2.5 at +110 I don't think is bad. And here's the thing. Optic have looked so bad, like as bad as it gets for the last few weeks. They have not won a match, and they haven't won a map, I don't think. I think they're 0-9 or 0-10, or 0-12, whatever it is, they're horrible. That being said, we've seen it from good teams, even this year with Atlanta FaZe. We saw it last year with Optic Texas. These good teams that are talented can go hot and win a major and look like the best team in the game for a month. And then the very next month, or maybe the month prior to that, they look like this. And this is unprecedented stuff for Optic. We haven't seen them this bad in a while. I can't remember a time where it was like they are really lost. But oh my goodness, what a nice landing. You get to play Vegas Falcons in round 1 of this. Probably 3-0 them. Maybe you go to a game 4. These teams have met twice, and Vegas did force a map 4 earlier this year. January 17th, Vegas won the Vault Search and Destroy 6-4, but it was all Optic outside of that. I guess Vegas did force a round 5 in the Control as well. That was a somewhat tight series, all things considered, but it's got to be Optic for me. I think they'll bounce back. I think they sweep Vegas more often than not in this. I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. We've already seen that happen. But, like, when I just think about it, this team is the team that won champs last year. And they're playing the worst CDL team we've ever had in the league, bar none. There are probably challengers teams that are better than Vegas Falcons. And I get them to sweep at plus money. It's too good to pass up, I think. I don't love it, but I have to lean that side, if anything. So that's my spiel on Optic Texas. One thing I did want to go back to your point on, like, hardpoint performance and how our models can squeeze the teams into the middle despite extreme results. So how my model works, and I think my model is very good at hardpoint. So a 250 to 100 win and a 250, let's say that's game A, 250 to 100, that's a blowout, obviously. And then game B is 250 to 120. Okay, that's also a blowout. But the gap in how many points Team A scored was 20 points. Let's take another 2 hardpoint games where one team wins 250 to 240 and 250 to 220. One of those games is an absolute nail-biter that goes to the finish. And one of those games is highly competitive. Maybe not a nail-biter, but very competitive. You could easily have seen maybe Team B win that if they rotate a little earlier here or there. But those sets of hard points, in my model, are treated differently. Like, the 20 points difference in those close games means a lot more. My model treats a 250 to 100 pretty much the same as a 250 to 120. So that's my spiel on that. I think we're doing it right, but I have had to think about adjusting, like, how low my model goes on certain teams, because Vegas are really pushing that. I believe they're 0-19 now in hardpoint. Yeah, it's real bad, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. They've had a couple shots at hard points and have obviously fell short a couple of times. I think they'll get it done sometime this year, but I don't know if it's going to happen against this Optic team despite their woes. We'll see how it all plays out, but this is maybe the most fascinating game ever between two teams that are struggling mightily.
We will see this on Friday. Yeah. Next up, Surge versus Breach. Surge, which is somehow the 9 seed, that still doesn't. They're robbed, honestly. They should have been a much higher seed. But anyway, Surge minus 225, Breach plus 162, Surge minus 1.5, plus 100, Boston plus 1.5, minus 138, minus 175 in the hard point, 138 in the Surge, and minus 200 in the control. All Surge favored. Yeah, I kind of like it a little bit. It's not. I kind of Surge a little bit. The thing is, I will say that I think I bet Surge at some insane number plus 1.5 versus Phase, and then that was like I didn't bet Phase. I didn't bet Surge moneyline against Phase. I just threw something on there. And then okay, but the thing is, because there have been so many games, Major one, everybody played what 7? Everybody played 7 matches in qualifying, and they played a game. They played the qualifying game for They played the minor game. Then they played another game. There have been a lot of games this year in the first block, more so than in past years. And because of that, my model has basically since Vancouver upset Phase, my model has been slow to adjust. And there's been a couple times where my model has actually said there's value of betting against Surge since they beat FaZe. There's value betting against Surge, and I'm just like I'm not gonna chase that because that seems a bit crazy to me. And every time Surge has easily covered and it's been fine. So it's a little weird to me. I think this is a little weird, and I'm just staying away. I'm just backing off and saying this is fine. I'm not touching this. So, I think if I had to play, it'd be Surge minus 1.5 because I think my model is like somewhat underestimating them just a little bit at this point. But other than that, maybe a hard point spread depending on what I have the spread at and what the game spread is. We'll see, but that's the only thing I can really see value here. I don't see much else value. What about you? Do you like Boston or?
I I do a little bit. I'm back on that Boston bandwagon after jumping ship. But yeah, Vancouver is a fascinating team right now, right? They're 3-0 in these qualifiers so far. A huge win over FaZe a couple weeks ago. And since then, it's been great. Their new lineup looks very good. Yeah, they seem like a team that could use a roster change after Major 1. They went through with it. A lot of people thought, oh, Hook is not on Optic anymore. Maybe he'll reunite with Coach Rambo on Surge. He was on Surge last year. They go, no, we'll take Neptune. He looks pretty good, and it has been wonderful for them. On the flip side, Boston Breach, I don't know, they're in the mud right now. Like, I still think they're a quality team. They're still a team I expect to make champs at the end of the year. But yeah, I get why Vancouver is favored in this game. The price is another story. Like Boston Breach, for their faults, are still a very competitive hardpoint team. And that, to me, makes the plus 1.5 pretty enticing. And I'm a little bummed out because this price, I think Boston plus 1.5 was minus 120 earlier today, and it shifted minus 138, mostly due to control. I think Vancouver went from minus 300 down to minus 200 in control, which I think is the correct move. Boston are horrible in that, but making Vancouver minus 300 is a bit steep. So I think the market made the right move there in terms of just making an accurate price. So this one makes it tricky for me, but overall, I think it's just one of those classic, I think these teams are in the same bucket. One has been very hot lately. One has been a little cold or a little mediocre. And I think it's just a good buy low point on Boston Breach at this price. You could take the money line. That's fine as well. I think the plus 1.5 is better just because their bread and butter more so is hardpoint, and their search is fine as well. It really just comes down to map 3. But even there, they've shown that they can get a map here or there. So this one's tough to call. It's really close to a toss-up for me, but at the end of the day, like, I would bank on. I think Boston can at least force a map 5. I don't know if they'll win that, but we'll see. Because I don't know, man. Vancouver have been hot. It's one of those scary situations where I don't want to step in front of the really hot team, but the price is getting a little crazy now. So yeah, I guess give me Boston, but I don't love it.
Yeah, fair. Next up, is this match 4? It is match 4. Wow, we're almost done. It's flown by here. Cloud9 minus 163 against Minnesota plus 120. Cloud9 minus 1.5 plus 150. Minus 138 on the hard point. 138 in the search and 138 in the control. This one is interesting because sometimes what I'll do is I'll generate my lines, but I won't look at them. I'll generate all my lines for the weekend, and I won't look at them until I get the lines. And then I look at the line, and I'm like, oh, that's what I expected, or really, that's what it is. And I'm like, oh, my model agrees with it or not. Because there's a school of thought back to NFL where what a lot of NFL guys will do is they will try to make like because basically the lines for the next Sunday come out around halftime on the Sunday night game. So what a lot of NFL guys will do is before the new lines come out, they will sit down and think what the line should be. They'll math it out themselves. Not math it out is the wrong term. They will guess what the line should be using their own knowledge and background. And then based on what they see the line when the line comes out, they will then take an immediate position on that line based on what they think it should be. And it's a way to set expectations. It's the way I do it with Call of Duty. And this one is interesting because I thought I was like, oh, my model's gonna love Minnesota Rocker here, 100%, and it did not. It did not. My model was actually that's a pretty good price for New York. A little under for New York, but a lot under for Minnesota. My model is very clearly siding with New York here, and it makes sense. This team is pretty hot right now. They beat Ultra, right? They beat Ultra. They've been pretty good. Like they're on a little bit of a tear, right? They're on a bit of a run, and I kind of think that's kind of cool. So I think I'm going to pick New York here, I think. Do you see anything else here, or are you... Minnesota's faded a little bit, but I think if you had to make a pick here, I think you're picking New York.
I don't know. So I've been the guy that's been very anti Cloud9 like all year, and I haven't really been pro Minnesota, but they've been pretty good all year, pretty consistent. They've been that team in the middle of the pack that hasn't had really high highs or really low lows compared to this Cloud9 team or Vancouver Surge, right? They started very slow and have really heated up. Boston Breach are the opposite. They started very strong and then have cooled off since the major. Minnesota are just steady Eddie, right in the middle of the pack. They win the games they're expected to win. They've competed in the games among the elite teams. And yeah, I don't know. I view this game similarly to the last one. I think these teams are in the same tier. I get why Cloud9 is favored. They've been very hot, but Minnesota's results have been solid as well. Maybe not to the level of New York, but solid. And these teams just met at Major 1, and Minnesota got a 3-1 win in that. That was losers round 2, I believe. Yeah, I don't know. And my model kind of agrees. My model says Minnesota is a tiny favorite in map 1, map 2, and map 3. So this is pretty much as close to a true toss-up as it gets, according to my numbers. These teams are highly competitive across the board in every game mode. And yeah, it's hard to make a call, so I'll just side with the team that's plus 120, and that's Minnesota Rocker. I get the New York argument, though. They have been heating up, no doubt. They're Vancouver Surge-y at this point. But yeah, I think Minnesota are right there with them, and I think this is going to be a close series, all things considered. I like Minnesota ever so slightly, but yeah, would not shock me if New York just keep things rolling, because they do look very good right now.
Yeah. Moving on for the futures here to win the major. So you're looking at to win outright. FaZe is plus 100, Thieves is plus 150. Then it just starts rapidly depreciating from there. Ultra plus 750, Ravens plus 900, and then all the way down to, for some reason, Vegas is on the board. They really shouldn't even be. Like, it's funny that they shouldn't even be on the board. That's 1,000 to 1 is insulting. That's the amount of juice you're taking at 1,000 to 1. This should be like 10,000 to 1. This shouldn't even be 1,000 to 1. Even five. It should be 1,000 to 1 to reach the finals. And I bet you I'm not gonna do this because whatever, but like you probably couldn't even bet like a dollar. They'd be like, no, we're not gonna let you bet a dollar on Vegas to do this. Like the limit on that market would be like, no, we're not letting you do that.
$1 to me if they wanted to take that.
Yeah, enough. My model likes phase. Your model somewhat less likes phase. We both agree that this price is wrong. That's the big takeaway. Because it was funny because I'm looking through this and I'm comparing it to the spreadsheet and I'm like, yeah, my model's about right on phase. Now my model's really low on thieves, and oh look, your model is also really low on thieves too. And again, it's funny because it's not. That's not because of thieves being bad or anything. It's just the model thinks that phase is better, and the fact that phase is less likely to trip up with the other teams. And then, as such, if they thieves could win this 100%, but the model is saying that thieves are much more likely to trip up before they get to the finals because they do have to play Carolina, which is not nothing. Now they have treated them like nothing, but Carolina is not nothing. Anyway, our model is saying that the plus 150 should probably be much closer to plus 2 or plus 300 comparatively. But that being said, I don't know, I'm not running to bet phase because the thing is this would imply what? That a phase thieves final is what? Phase minus 125?
A little
Maybe
higher,
one,
but
maybe minus
yeah,
150. So you could bet a plus 100 now, or you could just bet a minus 150 on Sunday.
right.
Like,
But yeah, that's the thing. So the odds to win outright market is always not my favorite, and I don't know why they do that. It's every week though. There is so much more hold in the win outright market than to reach the final market. And yeah, I think it's just because people want to bet into this market more. And it makes sense. You want to pick the winner, not just a team that shows up to the final match. But yeah, I think here's what I'll say about FaZe's number. I think my number is pretty good, but maybe a little low. If I just erased Atlanta FaZe's results from December entirely, I just said, they never played those games, my number probably would be at market, which is 50%. Do I think FaZe win this minor half the time? I kind of, yeah, that seems about right. They won the minor one pretty comfortably. Part of that was they they did not dodge thieves in that. They played them in round 2, if memory serves correct, but then they breezed through to the finish line after that. So yeah, FaZe's number's about right, but like your point is spot on. It's an even bet, and they gotta still win 3 games, and why not just wait and see if they're there actually? And we'll have more data points from then on out. Maybe FaZe reached the final, and actually the other team in the match, weirdly enough, because of what they did leading up to that. That's where I'm at. Carolina shows a little bit of value there at 9-1, and Carolina, I like that number. Carolina, to me, are the third best team, or to my model, the third best team in the league. A lot of that is search and destroy and control driven, which we have teams like that every year that thrive in those, and they're fine in hardpoint. It's just a tough pill to swallow when Carolina get matched up against FaZe or Thieves and just get slammed in hardpoint. And you're like, all right, if they can just weasel out a 2-3-5, and maybe they show up on a good day and can win a hardpoint against those teams, but it's tough with these other teams. We need to see a little more, specifically in hardpoint, for all of these teams, for Toronto, for Optic, for every one of those teams in the middle. Like, we need to see someone else compete in hardpoint, because right now it's those two, and then those other modes are just good enough for them. But yeah, could you flip over to the odds to reach the final? Because I think that one's a little more interesting. Our models are very similar to the odds to win outright market, but Carolina, just to get there, I think at plus 350 is very good. And you talked about it a little bit with Thieves' path, like to get to the final to win outright. Thieves get a bye, which they deserve. They are a very good team. But they have to play the winner of Minnesota Cloud9. And that is tricky. According to my model, that's the 5th and 7th best team in the league, which is, we expect Thieves to handle that, whoever that is, relatively easily. But that is a real team they gotta face. Like, it's not LAG, Miami, who are like the potential matchups for Carolina. So that's part of it with Carolina, is just they have a bye, they'll play Miami or LAG, and they might not even have to play Thieves if Thieves run into trouble with Rocker or with Cloud9. So you kind of have to do like 3D chess to get there, but the amount of times that Carolina path to the final happens is more than what the market is telling you. And maybe there's a shot that Carolina just show up, look hot, and roll through Thieves anyway in that semifinal game. But yeah, that's all I see here. There are maybe some things to be had, like you like New York, for instance. I see a tiny bit of value on Boston, crazy enough, but again, I don't want to buy into that too much. But yeah, it should be an interesting minor nonetheless, but I think justifiably, like, it's a two-team race, and we'll see if any other team can crack into that.
Interesting note, I will say it. It's true with this is the to reach the minor, little bit of black there on Vancouver, and then also to win that's a little shade of black. Also, I will say it's very hard to see, but my model actually weirdly has you could, if you zoom in on your phone, if you just like zoom, you can actually see there's a little sliver, 0.05%, half of a percent of Vegas reaching the final. It is possible somehow. I think there is a lot of variance built. I think they reached it like one time. The thing is, I'm realizing now the path for Vancouver is not actually that bad, right?
Well, it's
You
phase
get
in round two, right?
yeah, but you 3-1 phase last time you played them.
That's true. That is totally true.
And that's the thing, right? You 3-1 them the last time you played them, then you get Toronto, assuming that they've went out too, right? 22-1 to beat a team and that you 3-1 the last time you played them. It's not like from a value perspective, it's not
Yeah.
actually bad. That
Yeah.
actually makes a lot of sense.
I will say that might be the one instance where I would prefer the win outright market. If you are bought into Vancouver and you think they can get past phase with somewhat, like, even if they're a 40 60 underdog, something like that, like, if they're legit, they could run through that top part of the bracket. And the one thing with that, too, is that you'd rather, if you're thinking about winning this minor, you'd rather run into FaZe. You'd rather avoid FaZe altogether. But you'd rather run into them in a best-of-5 series than a best-of-7, which this grand finals now is a best-of-7. That is worth noting. So
They
that
changed it?
they did tweak that, which I like. That was a good change. But again, they're just kind of doing stuff. That does favor the elite teams, the phases, the thieves, the teams that are better in search, like Carolina, that favors slightly, just because you have that extra search and destroy out, which FaZe needed in Major 1 for sure. Yeah, this minor could play out in a very interesting way. Minor 1 played out pretty interesting. Like, Carolina went on a nice run there. Minnesota went on a nice run. Ultimately, FaZe got the dub, but this one could play out very similarly. I hope it does, because right now it really just feels like we have two teams that might win this, because they're so far ahead of the pack, but we'll see.
Yeah. Models versus markets. So this is our picks for the week. I'd love to have some other plays in here, but it's a little sad because we don't have the spreads. I'm going to go Miami plus 137, LAG versus Miami plus 137, Surge minus 1.5 versus Boston, and then Vegas plus 2.5 minus 150 versus Optic. You've got Boston plus 1.5 versus Vancouver, Minnesota plus 120 versus New York, and Optic minus 2.5 versus Vegas. We're on opposite sides there on our third bet. We'll have to see what happens there. Combined model plays not a lot, obviously, but we do like the LAG play. Our models both combine like the LAG play. We like Vancouver in control, apparently, and Boston in hardpoint, and Minnesota in control as well. That's it for us for this week. Major 2, Week 3. We will be doing that next week, and that will be coming out to you then. We're going to obviously Week 3 and then Week 4, and then we're in the Major, right? Because it's only 4 weeks for this one, right? Mm-hmm. We are just a little bit away from Major 2. And honestly, the last Major was awesome. This has actually been a pretty good year of COD. It's been pretty exciting. The game's been pretty close. It's been pretty exciting. So yeah, enjoy your weekend, everybody. Enjoy Minor 2. The last one was pretty fun. And yeah, we'll see you next week.